Hello everyone and welcome back. In this video I'll show you my technique for hairspray chipping, adding filters, and pin wash detailing. Good day and thanks for joining me for part 2 of the Italari AS42 Sahariana build. In the first video I did the detailing and building of the kit, and like I said in the intro, we'll be dealing with hairspray chipping, filters, and pin washes. Before any of that happens though, I needed to prime the surface with some good lacquer-based primer. And my primer of choice is Mr. Mahogany Surfacer 1000. This also comes in a rattle can, but I prefer to spray it through my airbrush. This is a 50-50 mix of primer to Mr. Color Leveling Thinner 400. Hey, speaking of airbrushes, check this one out. If you'd like this airbrush or anything else Gallery sells, you can check out my affiliate link in the description below and you'll get a nice 10% discount. If you are spraying lacquers, I would highly recommend Mr. Color Leveling Thinner 400. The leveling in the name being the key here. This thinner will help you get that creamy smooth surface that you want when you're spraying your paints. If you've been having trouble getting a smooth finish, I would highly recommend you go out and try this product. You don't necessarily have to use this dark of a primer. There are lighter primers that you can use, but for this technique, this is what I need, and you'll see why right now. The dark primer gives me a nice base to add some rusty tones on top. Then when I chip that top coat, there'll be a nice variety of tonal variation underneath each chip. You could, however, just leave the dark primer, but I kind of prefer that variation when you chip away the paint. And of course, the rest of the details receive the same treatment. So here's what it looks like. I hope this step will give me some nice results. I did do some tests on a paint mule, so if it turns out like this, I'll be pretty happy. This is my preferred brand of hairspray. You can use anything you like, but make sure the hold isn't too high. You can spray it straight out of the can, but I prefer decanting mine and using the airbrush. You just get more control that way. Proper application is 2 thin coats. And if you've done it properly, you should get a sheen something like this. I give the hairspray a few minutes to dry, and then I hit it with the top coat. The key is not to lay it on too heavy. Kind of a medium coat is what you want to do, just enough for coverage. These are some of the essential tools I like to use while chipping, water included. This, to me, a stir stick really comes in handy when making long scratches, and a sharpened toothpick is great for making microchips. And probably the most important part are some old tattered, shapeless brushes. The key to successful hairspray chipping is not to oversaturate the piece you're working on. You want the surface damp but not dripping with water. Because I'm using lacquer-based paints here, it is a little harder to chip than regular acrylic paints. I find a lacquer-based paint is a little more forgiving than acrylic, and you can be a little more aggressive with the removal process. The technique you want to use when chipping is mainly a rubbing action. I'll also use a poking twisting motion. That does help with paint that's being a little more stubborn. The rest of the components also receive 2 light coats of hairspray. And of course, the same color was added for the top coat. The same chipping techniques were used here as well. The windscreen seemed to be a little more stubborn, so I decided to bring out the big guns.
There you go, boys. See how Papa takes care of you?
That's right, the almighty toothpick. It's perfect for this because it's soft enough that it won't hurt the plastic, yet strong enough to activate the hairspray. I've said this in other videos, but removing these masks always seems to be the most satisfying part of any build, especially if it's successful. Masking inside and outside or both sides of an item can be tricky, but I think I was pretty happy with the results in the end. For the unditching ramps, I really wanted to create a highly worn surface here, with a lot of heavy chipping and scratch marks. I'm using a wide brush and being very aggressive with the chipping technique, and I think I achieved a fairly authentic look. The metal stir stick was perfect to create all those scratch marks. Now to the most important part of this vehicle, the 20mm Breda gun. The amount of chipping I'm doing on this vehicle seems to be within reason according to the reference photos I've been looking at. Something interesting worth noting here is that I didn't do all the chipping all in one day. It was done over a 7-day period, so that myth about not being able to chip anything after a day is total bullshit in my opinion. Sure, it might be a little harder to do, but you can still do it. Again, that sharpened toothpick really comes in handy for making all those microchips. In some cases, when the paint's being really stubborn, I do flood the surface. Not recommended, but sometimes you just have to do it. A sewing needle also works great for making long scratches. With the small parts completed, I could now focus in on the vehicle itself. The same hairspray application was used here as well. If this is your first time visiting my channel and you're enjoying what you're seeing, I would recommend you consider subscribing, give this video a like, and hit the bell notification so you never miss an episode. This really helps my channel grow, and I would certainly appreciate it. I focused in on the internal part of the vehicle first. I figured that's probably where most of the heavy wear will occur. All the same tools and techniques are used here as well. Just a quick note here to let you know that you should constantly be moistening the area that you're working on. It does dry fairly quickly, so you do need to keep activating that hairspray underneath. If you are having trouble getting the hairspray to activate, well, the toothpick is there for that reason too. By chipping away at certain parts, you can go back in with a brush later and work those loosened areas. If you're going to take on a hairspray chipped vehicle, well, it's not a quick process at all. This entire chipping process took me roughly about 10 hours to do. However, if you're looking for an authentic way to chip your vehicle, hairspray chipping really replicates that the best way. And they do look real because, well, they are chips. And let's be honest here, hand chipping or sponge chipping takes just as long. And in my opinion, never really looks as good. In the end, there's really no right or wrong here, it just comes down to personal taste. So no matter how you slice it, you will have to spend some time with one of these techniques. As long as you're enjoying the process that you're using, that's really all that matters here. Scale modeling is a constant highway of learning. I'm always looking to try and experiment with different techniques, and you should too, if that's the road you want to go down. So I guess what I'm saying here is build for you. If it makes you happy, go for it. Once everything was complete, it was time to give everything a coat of varnish. This was a good opportunity for me to try out these Kaleido color varnishes. They spray really well straight out of the bottle with no thinning. I decided to go with the semi-gloss varnish just so that I've got a nice base for when I add filters and pin washes. If you'd like to try these varnishes or any other Kaleido Works color product, please check out my affiliate links in the description below and use the coupon code SMALLSOLDIER to get a 10% discount. I make a small commission, and that helps incur some of the costs that go along with running my channel. There's not much for markings in this kit, a couple serial numbers, and a painted on emblem on the rear deck. Microset helps prepare the surface for the decal. Once in position, I like to use a moistened Q-tip to remove any air bubbles that may be left underneath the decal. Microsol helps to soften the decal and conform it to the surface. I'll usually do 2 to 3 applications of the Microsol. Because the engine deck is such a complicated area to put a decal on, I decided to go with paint instead. There was a fair bit of masking involved here, but nothing too overly complicated. A Q-tip works great to seat that tape down around all the detail. It's soft and pliable and makes easy work around all these raised areas. A sharpened toothpick can also be used for this same task. It's harder, but not hard enough to do any damage to the paint. I'll again be chipping this emblem, so some hairspray needs to go down before the paint. The whole area first gets a white undercoat. The green and red were then painted over the white. The masking can all be removed now to reveal a nice clean emblem.
Ah, yeah.
The tricky part here was going to be trying to match the same chipping effects that were previously done on the surface below. The white proved to be a much more difficult color to chip. Looking back, I probably should have done a lighter coat to begin with. I think I just put too much paint down and it was hard for the water to penetrate back into the hairspray. Overall, I think the blending of the chips worked out pretty good. I'm pretty happy with the results. I also did some distressing to the markings. Next up are some filters. Let me explain the difference between a filter and a wash. A filter is an ultra-thin skin of paint that generally changes or alters the base coat to either make it darker or lighter. You can use various shades of filters: yellow, green, red. These can also help shift the base coat from a cooler to a warmer tone, and vice versa. You can see here how this filter is giving the jerry cans a warmer tone. A wash, on the other hand, is not quite as thin and is used more to accentuate details like around rivets or panel lines, that sort of thing. A wash can also be a light or a dark tone, depending on the situation and what you're going to be using it for. I have a whole video that talks about washes and filters in detail. You can check it out in the description below. I usually create my own washes from an enamel or oil paint, but I was feeling a little lazy and I decided to just go with the pre-made one. Like I said earlier, a wash is there to accentuate the details. You're creating depth by adding a wash and some false shadows. If you want those details to pop, a wash is really the only way to do it. Once the pin wash has had time to dry, I then go back in with a thinner moistened paintbrush and clean up any kind of tide marks that are left behind. If too much is removed, I go back and reapply the wash. The wash on the jerry cans was very effective in pulling out all that fine detail. The pressed lettering detail is virtually invisible. Wash to the rescue. It's an old school technique with a huge impact. A moistened Q-tip can also be used in removing any tide marks or unwanted wash. With the filter complete, I can now add the pin wash to the vehicle. If you look at these two areas, you can see the difference the filter makes. I use the exact same procedure for the pin wash here as well. I sometimes pre-wet the area with thinners. This helps relieve the surface tension so that the wash works a little better. But because I used a semi-gloss varnish, that step is unnecessary. If you are going to pre-wet the area, I would suggest waiting 10 to 15 minutes before you add your pin wash. This will ensure the pin wash stays where you place it. Pin washes, chipping, and filters do take quite a bit of time to create. And let's face it, I'm not getting any younger and neither are you. So it really comes down to, what do you want to get out of your modeling? If you're happy with building the model and putting some paint on it and calling it a day, that's totally fine. But if you really want to push your models to the next level, I really feel that these techniques are key to better results. If these techniques are new to you and you want to try something a little more challenging, you should really give these techniques a try. Your first few models may not turn out exactly like you want, but the more you practice, the better you get. A small word of caution here, if you are using enamels to do your pin washes, you want to probably try to get those cleaned up sooner than later. They will tend to dry harder to the surface and be harder to remove the longer you leave them. In the next video, I'll finish up this vehicle and then we'll get on to the scenic base and that surprise I was talking about earlier. If you enjoy what I'm doing here, please consider subscribing, hit the bell icon so you never miss an episode, but most importantly, give this video a like. YouTube will see you enjoyed my video and suggest it to others just like you. If you're interested in learning more about filters, chipping, and washes, stick around to the end of this video. I'll have more content that'll be very interesting to you, and I'll see you there.